As many of you have found, these motors are terribly expensive compared to PSC motors. We've seen some of these motors from different manufacturers approaching $700 and $800 your cost, which means to your customer significantly higher. One of the things that often fails on this motor is a little device. It's round, kind of looks like a disc capacitor. It's actually what's called a current inrush limiter. And what the designer of these motors found is that when you apply the power the very first time, after the capacitors are discharged, the current rushes in there, and sometimes it rushes in there enough to trip a breaker in your home or your system. So they put this little device in there. A lot of people think it's a protection device against surges and stuff. It is not. They put this in there to keep the current from rushing in so fast that the breakers end up tripping. It allows the capacitors to charge up a little bit more smoothly. But a lot of times this device will fail for one reason or another. And when it does, a whole entire motor doesn't work. So instead of replacing a motor, you may find that replacing the device, here's an example of one device where it kind of melted down. Now in this particular case, if you'll see, the filter capacitor right next to that device is all black and charred. This would not be, this is a 2.0 module, by the way. This is a 2.3 module. This would not be a good candidate for replacing of that device because the capacitor itself is all charred. Can you see that at all? Guess not. Well, it's okay. If any other parts have failed near it because of the heat of the meltdown, chances are this isn't going to be a good candidate. Zebra makes an inexpensive part, sells to you guys for less than $20, that replaces that device in there. We've seen some of these things on the internet for $99. It's exactly the same part, so feel free to buy the much less expensive one. This device comes with a little wooden block that on the 2.3 series motors, after you've taken apart the two screws that mount the top circuit board, there's a little plastic retainer device, and you put the cone-shaped end of this down on that, push down, and it allows you to zoom in on this. Pushing this device over that plastic tab allows you to separate the circuit board from the tab more easily. But you have to solder to replace this device. You have to see where it's soldered in and replacing it. Again, it could be that this might save your customers many hundreds of dollars. It also might get them or you out of a jam if there's no immediate module replacement available and they're going to have to be without heat or without air conditioning for the 4 or 5 days that it might take to get the proper motor or the module in. It's an alternative for a short-term fix too. It is not guaranteed to fix every problem. In real life, what we see that in about 80% of the cases where that part is damaged and no other part is damaged, it restores the module to functionality. But it isn't guaranteed to do it, so you kind of take your chances and roll your dice, and if it works well, you've saved somebody, maybe yourself or your customer, a whole lot of money, and if not, you're not out that much. That module, the 2.0, the 2.3s, actually some of the X13s and the 3.0 by Gentech, you can replace it in this, but it's much more difficult because you have to solder from the top because it's an embedded part. Okay.